Our time is right now. This is Carolina Carroll in the studio. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. Let's get straight to the important news. As a result of Russian attacks on the Kherson, Donetsk, and Zaporizhzhia regions, at least 8 people were injured, including a child. 5 people were wounded in the Kherson region. The regional center and more than 20 settlements came under attack. 7 apartment buildings, 11 private homes, businesses, and cars were damaged. In the Donetsk region, 2 people were injured. In Zaporizhzhia, a 6-year-old girl was wounded as a result of shelling. Overall, Russian occupiers carried out 448 strikes on 34 settlements in the region. The Russians continue to attack transportation infrastructure targets. Over the past day, there were jeer and drone strikes in the Koryukivka and Nizhyn districts of the Chernihiv region. This was reported by the head of the regional military administration, Vyacheslav Chaus. According to him, in Nizhyn, a 49-year-old man was injured as a result of a ballistic missile strike. He sustained shrapnel wounds and was hospitalized. In total, over the past day, the Russians carried out 43 strikes on the Chernihiv region. Farm buildings, a residential house, and a library were damaged. Thousands of people were left without heat and water after the Russian attack on the Kharkiv region. In the city of Lozova, the largest boiler house was damaged, which nearly 16,000 subscribers depend on. This was reported by the city mayor, Serhiy Zelenskyy. According to him, it's below freezing outside right now, and all services are working to keep homes warm. Points of invincibility are operating in Lozova. Specialists are continuing to deal with the aftermath of the strike. Unfortunately, they have not yet been able to restore the water supply. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine recorded 237 combat engagements on the front lines over the past day. Defense forces repelled 8 Russian attacks, each in the Lyman and Slavyansk directions. Near Kostiantynivka, the Russian army launched 22 assaults. In the Pokrovsk direction, the enemy tried to advance 42 times. On the most intense section of the front, the Huliaipole direction, 49 attacks by Russian occupiers were recorded. The total losses of the Russian army since the start of the full-scale invasion have already exceeded 1,256,000 soldiers. These 830 invaders were eliminated just in the past day. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In addition, just the day before, the defense forces destroyed 1 Russian tank, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 21 artillery systems, 1 multiple rocket launcher, and 117 units of enemy automotive equipment. Ukrainian troops continue to hold back the advance of Russian occupiers in the Zaporizhzhia direction, near the settlement of Huliaipole. To counter Russian drones that hunt for artillery and self-propelled howitzers, the defenders set up electronic warfare systems and fire from concealed positions. Watch the following report to learn about the work of the artillery battalion in one of the hottest spots on the front line.
This is how Ukrainian artillerymen strike at Russian occupiers in the Zaporizhzhia region. However, besides targeting the enemy, the crew constantly has to keep watch to make sure the sky is clear of Russian drones. And to protect the Caesar self-propelled howitzers, they add extra armor to them.
The enemy isn't falling behind either. They're improving, finding different loopholes to get close to us. They use all kinds of drones, strike drones, reconnaissance drones. Sometimes absolutely nothing happens for quite a long while, and then, bam, one shows up. That's why we install electronic warfare systems on all our guns.
The unit commander, with the call sign Dioma, says that the safety of his comrades and equipment is his responsibility. That's why the whole team has to act really quickly and follow a well-practiced routine, almost on autopilot.
There's more work now compared to before. There's definitely more work now than there used to be, although we've always had plenty to do. But there were times when there was a bit less work. But right now, there's work to do, and it's non-stop.
According to the military, fighting around the city of Huliaipole has intensified in recent weeks. However, Ukrainian defenders are doing everything they can to keep the enemy from advancing. Natalia Belakudria for Freedom TV channel.
Putin is preparing the groundwork for a limited call-up of reservists to make up for losses in the war against Ukraine. Russia has already passed a law that tightens measures against draft evasion and has also blocked Telegram to limit public criticism. This was reported by the Institute for the Study of War. Analysts believe that the Kremlin wants to avoid a mass mobilization like in 2022 and will therefore conduct a phased call-up starting in 2025. This indicates a slowdown in volunteer recruitment and the Kremlin's difficult choice between continuing the war and the social consequences. Drones from the Security Service of Ukraine attacked the Velikoluskia oil depot in Russia's Pskov region. Unmanned aerial vehicles from the Alsa Special Operations Center successfully struck the facility nearly 500 kilometers from Ukraine's border. This was reported to Freedom by sources in the Security Service of Ukraine. At least 4 explosions occurred at the oil depot, followed by a large-scale fire. Workers from neighboring businesses were forced to evacuate. Despite the anti-drone nets installed over the fuel tanks, the Security Service of Ukraine's drones managed to get through this defense. The oil depot stored refined diesel fuel, gasoline, and various other petroleum products.
The security service at Ukraine continues to systematically target facilities that supply fuel to the Russian army. The destruction of oil depots directly affects the enemy's ability to conduct combat operations, launch offensives, and move reserves. Such operations are part of a systematic effort to weaken Russia's military potential. Source: Freedom at the Security Service of Ukraine.
ATS agents damaged an important communications hub in Russia's Lipetsk, near a military airfield and the strategic arsenal of the main missile and artillery directorate of the Russian army. As a result of the sabotage, a communications tower used for data transmission and coordination between Russian military structures was destroyed. According to the movement, such towers provide service, military, and backup communication channels. The destruction of this facility led to disruptions in information transmission and reduced the command and control capabilities of Russian occupying units. The Latvian Saeima has adopted a resolution on the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In the document, the deputies expressed their support for achieving peace in Ukraine by ensuring Russia's strategic defeat. The resolution notes that Ukraine is genuinely striving to end hostilities and is actively participating in peace negotiations. But Russia continues to sabotage peace initiatives through disinformation, ultimatums, and intensified attacks on Ukrainian civilians and their infrastructure.
By using disinformation, new unacceptable ultimatums, and intensified attacks on Ukrainian civilians and energy infrastructure, Russia is sabotaging peace initiatives and bears responsibility for the continuation of the war. The Saeima supports an effective long-term strategy by the European Union and NATO aimed at ending Russian aggression and achieving peace in such a way as to ensure Russia's strategic defeat and prevent it from restoring its military potential. From the resolution of the Latvian Saeima.
Ukraine's integration into the European Union is being discussed as one of the elements of peace negotiations. This was stated at a briefing in Brussels by the European Commission spokesperson for enlargement, Guillaume Messier. However, at this stage, he said it is impossible to predict the outcome of these discussions, as the work is still ongoing.
I can say that integration really can contribute to achieving our common goal, namely ensuring peace and prosperity for Ukraine. We also have a prosperity plan, including in the context of ensuring Ukraine's future prosperity after a ceasefire. Therefore, these ambitions should support our goal to make our union stronger and more independent. Despite a very difficult situation and the military context, we see that Ukraine has made steady progress in technical discussions and advancing reforms. Therefore, I can say that we will continue to work side by side with our Ukrainian colleagues to ensure their swift accession to the EU.
We'll take a closer look at the next topic on freedom. As of today, it can't be said that the outcome of the negotiations in Geneva, which took place the day before, is sufficient. This was stated by the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. According to him, the military contacts were serious and substantive. However, sensitive political issues and aspects related to the necessary meeting between the leaders of the two countries have not yet been sufficiently addressed.
Ukraine is interested in results. As of today, we can't say that the outcome is sufficient. The military discussed some issues in a serious and substantive manner. Sensitive political issues, questions about possible compromises, and the necessary meeting between the leaders have not yet been sufficiently worked out. We are counting on the next meeting, and it would be right to hold it as early as February. It's important that Europeans were present. France, the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland as the host country. Here in Ukraine, we have always promoted the position that Europe should be a participant in the process. I want to thank the United States of America for hearing this position. I also tasked the delegation with discussing the humanitarian track. We need prisoner exchanges and the release of civilians. For every person, we search for information and always work to bring our people back, to bring Ukrainians home. Every single exchange truly and deeply matters.
Russia is just trying to drag out the negotiations. This is how Volodymyr Zelenskyy responded to Moscow's historical debates in the context of ending the war. He emphasized that he has no intention of wasting time discussing historical issues, as this is an internal matter for Russia. Instead, Zelenskyy focused on issues of security and the lives of Ukrainians, emphasizing that the main thing is to resolve this quickly, end the war, and make peace.
The Russians tried to sell their audience on their so-called successful moves, but they failed. Even their own audience, the nationalist, radicalized segment of Russian society, doesn't trust the government or Putin because they see that there are no successful moves on the battlefield. Right now, Russia is losing 30 to 35,000 soldiers a month, either killed or severely wounded. They're literally paying with the lives of 156 people just to occupy 1 kilometer of our land. But we also have our own offensive actions, and then they lose that territory. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, president of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Additionally, the president announced that the next round of negotiations will also take place in Switzerland, and ideally, it should be held in February. Volodymyr Zelenskyy said this in an interview with British journalist Piers Morgan. He emphasized the importance of having the process take place specifically in Europe and with the participation of European countries.
I think a good thing is that the meeting took place in Switzerland. That's very important. I always say this with respect to the Middle East and other countries, but I believe that if the war is in Europe, then the location should be here as well. We're counting on the next meeting, and it would be right to hold it as early as February. It's important that Europeans were present. France, the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy. Switzerland acted as the host country. Here in Ukraine, we always promote the position that Europe should be part of the process.
The results of the trilateral talks in Geneva have already been reported to Donald Trump by U.S. presidential advisor Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. The White House stated that progress was made during the latest round. According to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, the parties will continue to work together on a peace agreement.
President Trump and his team have devoted an enormous amount of time and effort to ending a war that is happening very far from the United States of America. Just yesterday, another round of trilateral talks between the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine took place. Both sides made significant progress. Both sides agreed to promptly inform their respective leaders about the outcome of the discussions and to continue working closely together on reaching a comprehensive peace agreement. In addition,
in Ukraine, no one can guarantee that the dictator Putin won't attack again. Volodymyr Zelenskyy also said this in an interview with Piers Morgan. That's exactly why, the head of state noted, Ukraine needs strong security guarantees.
As of today, with all due respect to the powerful American president and America as a whole, no one can give us a truly firm promise. I mean, America is a strong partner, and we need its security guarantees. But even with all that, no one can tell us or promise us that Putin won't come back again. When we talk about security guarantees, we mean that we need strong security guarantees, that the rest of the world or certain countries will be ready to respond to Putin if he returns with his aggression or comes back again.